That's right. MPL versus Challenger here as well. But as I mentioned, this is a control mirror. We're coming into game number 2, where the young man, Ben Zahneissen, is the one who picked up game number 1 against the feisty veteran, Andrew Cuneo. Andrew has decided for blue-black, so he's playing Dimir control. It's blue-white in the hands of Ben, though. Talk us through a matchup like this. We don't get to see this in Historic that much. These decks aren't that popular.
Yeah, absolutely. I think coming into this tournament, if you were to expect to see a counterspell control deck, it would have been the Azorius control deck. But of course, Cuneo has actually been championing this Dimir control deck for a few tournaments now. Really just likes the way that it plays out. And, as we all know, Cuneo has always been one to play a control deck, even if it's good, even if it's bad. He'll choose to play it. But after sideboard, I think the important card that Andrew Cuneo has access to that the Azorius decks don't is Thoughtseize, right? Mm-hmm. Thoughtseize is an extremely cheap, efficient way to kind of start a counter war, and there's nothing that Ben is going to have in terms of counter magic that's going to match up to the efficient power of a card of this caliber. So that's the thing that Andrew's going to rely on. But outside of that, I mean, the game is going to play out very similarly. You're going to have both players just playing draw go, and I think one of the more important cards in this head-to-head is going to be Shark Typhoon. Both players have up to 4 copies, and it's really, really important for you to either have Shark Typhoons of your own or have a good way to deal with your opponent's Shark Typhoon. So I wouldn't be surprised going into Game 2 if Andrew Cuneo did keep some number of instant speed removal just to be able to kill opposing Shark tokens.
Here's a Thoughtseize, but there is an answer for it here, and this is a card that Ben has access to that Andrew doesn't, which is powerful in these type of matchups. It's Dovin's Veto.
Yeah, Andrew wanted to test the waters there, see what Ben's working with, but he still has a follow-up play this turn, right? So Ben used a counterspell there. He's going to cast a Behold the Multiverse, which is actually going to resolve here, and it's going to set Andrew up very nicely. If he can find a Thoughtseize, he can potentially have that 1-2 punch of Thoughtseizes into Narset next turn.
This was rough too, because Ben actually had the ability to cast a Narset here if he felt comfortable into the 2 mana. He just didn't have the second blue source untapped, so he didn't even have the chance to try it if he wanted. We've seen how powerful cards like Narset can be in matchups like this, where they're kind of pesky to get off the battlefield, and they just sit there and mess with your opponent's game plan.
Yeah. It is definitely tough, though, to just try to run out that Narset, because often what happens in these control matchups is the impatient player ends up being the one that gets punished. Because the play pattern that normally occurs if you try to tap out and play a permanent is your opponent counters it with a negate or whatever, then they untap and they get to play their Planeswalker, and then all of a sudden you're in trouble. So
right.
Unclear if he would have run it out anyways, but yes, it would have given him an additional option.
Yeah, I wanted to know, but yeah, he didn't have the choice. We are in game number 2. Ben has picked up the first game, so we have to keep in mind that sideboards are in effect here, and that's a big deal in these matchups because there's a lot of cards that you want to get out of your deck about as quickly as you possibly can, and the players will have already accomplished that.
Oh, Ben going for it here.
No fear, baby. He's going to run out the Narset Parter Veil. I guess that answers our question about last turn, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think he would have run it out. I think he would have run it out.
He's going to go for it here. And what this is going to do is force the issue on Cuneo to resolve his Behold the Multiverse now because, well, it wouldn't do a whole lot. It would get him a card if he were to, but this gets him both cards, and he finds Thoughtseize in another land there. Minus on the Narset. Ben finds 2 good options here, a hard counter and absorb, but search for Azcanta can be really difficult to beat if you're on the wrong side of it in a control mirror, no doubt about that. He's going to go for the absorb, though.
Yeah. The issue, kind of at least in this tournament, is people have been starting to play more copies of Field of Ruin. So Azcanta the Sunken Ruin is no longer the end-all be-all in these control matchups because both decks typically will have an answer for a flipped search for Azcanta.
Yeah, and Cuneo's a huge fan of Field of Ruin. He's running 4 in his deck, and he plays it about as often as they'll let him. He loves that card. It also has other utilities, that we've seen earlier in the tournament as well, like turning on Fatal Push or taking out a land that has Wolf Willow Haven or something like that on it.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll definitely it definitely makes sense as you see more copies of it in Cuneo's list than, for example, Ben's list, who has 2. Because if you're playing a card like Absorb, you need to make sure that all your lands tap for colored mana to make sure you can cast that on turn 3.
2 Narsets facing off against each other here in game number 2. Both players have that key card on the battlefield. We'll see how this goes as Narset for Ben Zahneissen gets a cast out here, but it looks like close enough to the road being clear here for Ben. He has no chill at all, and he just jams that Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, and it resolves.
And I mean, Cuneo doesn't have an immediate answer to this, right? So he's gonna need to find something like a Vraska's Contempt here. He does have a commit, and if he doesn't find an answer, you might see him just cast a commit here to get that Teferi off the battlefield, because you cannot let Ben untap and just start getting ahead on cards with that Teferi. So I imagine we're going to see a commit here with a land, and that means that he's also set up with a negate in case Ben chooses to try to slam another Teferi next turn.
I'm just kind of wondering, does Andrew even play any ways to interact for 1 mana? Because Ben put that on the stack so quickly that I'm wondering if maybe he's looked at the list and Andrew just doesn't run stuff like that.
Yeah,
because
Andrew is not playing Mystical Dispute, which is a card that you commonly see people play. I think there is definitely some value to playing at least 1, because it is a decent card in the... Well, not only that, I mean, it's just a pretty solid counterspell against blue decks, right? And it also doubles down in just making sure that your opponents kind of have to respect the fact that that card exists in your deck.
Well, that answers that question then, doesn't it? So Ben is just like, hey, I got the green light. If you've only got 1 mana, I'm going to resolve my Teferi.
I wonder if Andrew is going to fight over this Narset. He does have the negate backup here.
But he knows about the Teferi on top of the library, so maybe he's thinking he might have bigger... Oh, here's Absorb.
Yeah. I mean, I think you have to let this resolve, right? You need to have that negate up
for that
Teferi.
Yeah.
Or do you?
No. Our control veteran says no.
All right.
We can fight. I really want to have an Narset on the battlefield, and I want to have it right now.
I mean, one thing that Cuneo could be setting up here is he's got a memory in his graveyard. That's a Narset that's in play. So if he can kind of string those together...
Dude, is that what he's doing?
That would be very strong. However, I mean, what we saw Ben do in the previous turn was Teferi minus on the Narset. So I imagine it's pretty likely that he's going to go for that line again.
That's right. And remember, Ben has his own copy of Narset there too. So, you know, Andrew wouldn't want to run into that. All right, well, here comes Teferi. And now it's just Ben hoping and praying that he gets to untap with the Planeswalkers he has here. Because if he gets to start doing the Teferi thing, well, you know how that goes. It is a flood of cards going into hand. And that's what happened here. Plus that thing right away, says Ben Zahneissen. And he finds a Censor and a Grafdigger's Cage from his draw step.
And Grafdigger's Cage, excellent against Torrential Gearhulk, which is why I imagine he's playing it. And it also prevents Cuneo from casting Memory as well.
And Cling.
And Cling.
Okay. Sure. Now I wonder if Ben's going to get his castle rolling here, perhaps. He's got a Castle Ardenvale. The cards he has in his hand aren't super exciting. A Baffling End and a Cast Out with a Censor.
And we're going to see a Shark Typhoon, but as you can see here, Andrew's keeping up mana to cast Saw It Coming. He did make it a 3/3. I wonder if you wanted to maybe... I don't know what Teferi's on.
Should be on 2.
If it's on 2, you might have wanted to consider to put it for 2 so that you could pay for a Censor if Ben potentially has that as the last card in his hand, right?
Yeah,
because this Censor is going to be huge.
Right, because I think it went 4/1 and then plus to 2. Boy, Paul, good call there. Because if he could keep this Shark on the battlefield, it could start wreaking havoc with the Planeswalkers. And yeah, Tefers is on too.
Okay. Vraska's Contempt.
Narset digging for an answer. Well, it's another Shark Typhoon. These sharks are quite good at mowing down Planeswalkers. And there's Torrential Gearhulk. Now, it's just going to have to be a 5/6.
Just a 5/6.
Yeah, it's still huge.
Yeah.
The Castle Ardenvale helps, though.
Yeah, and Teferi is shut off right now with that Narset.
Right.
And Ben does have the option of playing out or making 2 blockers here.
That's what he's going for. He main phased used one of his castles and then used, well, he didn't get the card off of Teferi. He did get the untapped lands, and he can make another token.
Oh,
ooh, Sublime Epiphany. That's a big one. And it looks like
forcing
Cuneo,
the tap out here potentially.
That's right. He says if you want to make one, you got to do it now.
And since he doesn't have anything, well, first of all, Cuneo already knows that the last card is Baffling End.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just curious to see what Ben chooses to do here. I imagine he's going to try to make a token because you want to have that second blocker in case Cuneo has a removal spell.
It's also a threat for the opposing Narset if he has 2 tokens on the battlefield.
That's right.
And that's important here because Narset is keeping Teferi in check in a meaningful way here. Oh, right. He can see it land untapped anyway, so he can still just make the token if he'd like, right? No, I guess he still... Yeah, what? Yeah, he does. He can do it. He is down to 1 castle, though, and that's another, potential line of play for Cuneo to find another copy of Field of Ruin and shut that off down the line.
So, let's see. No, you can't bounce both Narset and Grafdigger's Cage. I was thinking if there's some way to copy the Gearhulk and bounce the Grafdigger's Cage and cast the memory somehow, but...
You know what? Yeah, that's tough, because I think he could do 2 of those 3 things. Bounce the Cage, copy the Hulk, but the Narset, I think, just keeps things...
Right. Now he can... Yeah. Now the Cage is bounced, so he can target the Epiphany again.
Uh-huh.
He could also choose to commit the Teferi. No,
right, of course.
Epiphany.
I only think of memory off of a Gearhulk, but yes.
I mean, by the way, Andrew's going to have 15 power on the battlefield.
Yeah. This is some sweet stuff here from Andrew Cuneo, putting together an explosive turn set up by just running out that Torrential Gearhulk a little while ago. Yeah, this works, right? He got Narset back into hand here, and now he can go off. Look at this. Memory out of the graveyard is going to wipe away the hand of Ben, leaving him with just the 1 card.
Oh, my goodness.
As you see Narset go wub, 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 and remind you. On the other side, though, Andrew just completely reloaded. What a sequence and a concession from Ben Zahneissen after that blowout from Andrew Cuneo. Wow. This is sick.
I'm not going to lie. I have not played too much of Sublime Epiphany plus Torrential Gearhulk. I'm sure Cuneo has played it a lot more. I am very interested. I'm extremely interested, Marshall. That was amazing.
Incredible play from Andrew Cuneo to even things up at 1 game apiece against the newcomer Ben Zahneissen, and we'll see how this goes. Boy, it's crazy, too, because these control mirrors usually don't end like that, right? With this insane flurry of spells, mana. I mean, how much mana did he get to use up, cast that turn effectively, right?
Yeah.
It was 6 for the Epiphany, another effectively 6 for the copied Gearhulk, another 6 from the Epiphany, which got him another Gearhulk. So that's 24. And then he cast Memory. So 30.
all it takes, Marshall, is to resolve a Gearhulk and then resolve a Sublime Epiphany.
Yeah. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, the nice thing is you can just kind of do those at instant speed at different points in the game, right? So he was able to kind of try and set that up.
Right. And, I mean, there's there's many decks in this format that can't interact with that meaningfully, right? This is one that actually can, although couldn't there.
Yeah. The really interesting thing, as you saw in that last game, is just like kind of the back and forth that the two decks just are jockeying for position. It's all about resolving the planeswalkers, making sure the coast is clear, but making sure that you'll be protected from things like Shark Typhoon. There's just a lot of little things that both players have to be mindful of, when they're just kind of playing this back and forth matchup.
Okay.
Bit of a slower start here. Been debating whether or not he wants to sandbag the castle due to all the Field of Ruins in Cuneo's deck, but...
And there's even one in hand. Maybe he's thinking, I'd like to get at least one token out of this thing. If he plays it next turn, he can at least respond and make a token. I mean, you wouldn't think that that would be such a big factor, but when it comes to planeswalkers, having any board presence whatsoever to pressure their loyalty actually matters a lot.
Yeah. And as you can see here, Cuneo also being patient with the Shark Typhoons in hand. Oftentimes oftentimes people just want to cycle just to see what's coming up next. Put a 1/1 on the battlefield here for free, but Cuneo waiting for them to be slightly more sizable threats here, as long as he's not missing his land drops.
That's kind of a lifetime mantra for Andrew Cuneo. As long as I
Never
don't miss a
miss
land
land
drop,
drops?
I'm fine, yeah.
I mean, who likes to miss land drops?
No, I mean, missing land drops well, I don't know. If you're an aggro player, you hit third land and it's like,
What's that, Marshall?
You could be fine with, big hypothetical when I'm talking to you. Also want to remind you at home that, these players are undefeated coming into the last round here. And as we mentioned before, if you get to 12 wins here in the tournament, that puts you into the top 8 guaranteed. You don't even have to play the rest. You just get wins for the rest and you're in. And both of these players have put themselves in a position to be halfway there already. And whoever wins this game is going to take yet another step further. And we're here on day 1, and we haven't even started day 2 yet. And these guys are already starting to look at potential implications for a top 8. Really impressive run by both of them. And I really want to highlight Cuneo here, who's had a rough season. He's last place in the MPL, and he needs to get these things going. And boy, has he come out and done it. He is 6-0, and if he can pick off this game, he'll be undefeated overnight, which is, can't ask for better than that.
Yeah, and another thing I want to point out is just that kind of coming into this event,
What did you see?
Thought
my. Distortion? Oh,
Thoughts distortion.
Oh, my God. Look at the hand.
I need a face cam right now.
Is it all of them?
To see the face
oh,
of
my
Ben's
God.
heart shatter into 2 pieces right now.
All he can do is cycle something and hope to hit a land that can't get hit?
Yeah, that's basically
He did
it. He got there,
He
Marshall.
did it.
Okay, he got there twice.
Unbelievable thought distortion for the blowout. What is with Cuneo? Normally he wins with these like incremental advantage decks. Now he's just throwing windmills over in Ben's direction, and so far he has not been able to handle it. Goodness sakes.
Oh man. All right. I think it's shark time. I think we're gonna start cranking out some large flying shark tornado tokens.
So you'd rather have that than a 1/1?
Yeah,
soldier?
I mean, he could have had a 1/1, I guess. Yeah, right.
Good goodness sakes.
Yeah, Andrew can make, what, a 5/5 this turn, follow that up with a 6/6. And, I mean, his hand is just loaded, too. I mean, take a look. He's got 3 copies of Saw It Coming here.
Good God.
Oh, it looks like, okay.
Uh-oh, our co-commentators, Ailey and Monty, are trying to rile up the chat to get the get him on the hardcast train, but
definitely not.
I don't think Cuneo has it in him.
Definitely not.
I just don't think that's how he views this game. Wow. I got to say, I mean, a great day for Ben Zahneissen here, regardless of the outcome, but this cannot have been a fun match to play.
Oh, not at all. I mean, look, That's the huge edge you get in this matchup, right? The fact that you have an uncounterable, take every spell out of your hand trump card, that there's nothing the blue-white deck can do. I mean,
they just have to take it. I mean, the best he could do was cycle 2 spells to find lands, which he actually did. But my goodness sakes. Thought Distortion, not a nice card. That's a mean one.
That is a mean one. And you actually see a solid amount of any kind of these mid-range decks playing black have access to this card. It's just so devastating against the Azorius control decks.
That's pretty funny. A Thought Distortion went on the stack and Kibler appeared to tell everybody that it's not not a nice card.
I don't think Thought Distortion has ever affected any of Kibler's decks, right?
I was gonna say
by that point, I mean he's either won or lost the game with, 3 mana 4/4 of some kind.
Oh man. Cuneo's just in his happy place here.
Oh, I mean, who wouldn't be? Look at that. You have a grip full of counters. You got some giant shark type tokens. I mean, you got Thoughtseize. I mean, the world is your oyster here if you're Andrew Cuneo.
We asked Cuneo to describe his playstyle, and he said, inexplicable yet intractably tedious.
That is the most Cuneo answer I can imagine.
The real test is, how many of those words do we know? And there's Andrew Cuneo picking off the victory here and improving to a very impressive 7-0.